Hello everyone, this is the part 2 on fraction video. Part 1 was about addition and subtraction using the fraction. In part 2, we'll be learning about how to perform multiplication and division on fraction. So let's begin. So the example 1 says 1 over 2 times 1 over 3. So how do we solve this? Multiplication of fraction is much easier in compared to addition or subtraction of fractions. So in here, the first step is to multiply numerator times the numerator. So we say 1 times 1 all over denominator times denominator, which is 2 times 3. And then simply we solve the numerator and the denominator. Now what is the numerator? 1 times 1. What is 1 times 1? That's 1. Now what's 2 times 3? That's 6. Therefore our answer is 1 over 6. So what did we do in this? Let's look at the steps. What did the step 1 say? We first multiply numerator times numerator. And what was step 2? Denominator times denominator. Now what does the last step does is simply times the numerator and denominator. Now there is one more step, which is the fourth step. In this case, it doesn't apply. The fourth step is to simplify further. So we need to see if there is any number that can go into both numerator and the denominator. Right now we can see these both numerator and denominator are to its simplest form, right? So let's add step 4, and in the next example we'll do the one where we have to simplify. So let's look at example 2. Example 2 says 1 over 2 times 2 over 3. According to our steps, first step is numerator times numerator. So let's go and say 1 times 2. Now the second step says denominator times denominator over 2 times 3. Now according to the step 3, we need to perform calculation. So we multiply the numerator and the denominator. So what is 1 times 2? It's 2. And what is 2 times 3? That's 6. Now in this case, this is not to its simplest form, so we need to simplify further. So now you must be thinking, how do I know if I need to simplify further or not? So if you look at the numerator and the denominator, you can see though these two are both even numbers, in this case there should be one number that can go into 2 as well as 6. So if you had an odd number on the numerator and odd number in the denominator, then they both should be divisible. You should be able to simplify them further. So we can see both numbers are even here. So it means we know that we can simplify them further. So what is that number? The smallest number that can go into both 2 and 6. So if it's even number, you know it can either be divided by 2, 4, 6, 8 or 10, right? So in this case we can see the smallest number is 2. So let's try dividing by 2. If we divide 2 by 2, we remain with remainder 1 without any, we remain with 1 without any remainder. And if we divide 6 by 2, we remain with 3 without any remainder. Hence we know the greatest number we can divide these two with is 2. So therefore 2 divided by 2 and 6 divided by 2. So what is 2 divided by 2? That's 1. And what is 6 divided by 2? That's 3. Right? Now you can see both are odd numbers. So you must be thinking that I said if they are both even or if they are both odd, we can divide them further. But this is to its simplest form, because if you divide 1 by 1, we'll still get 1. Therefore, this is your final answer. So your answer is 1 over 3. So this was the fourth step. Let's move on to example 3 and do that. So example 3 says 2 over 3 times 4 over 3. Now let's follow those steps. The step says numerator times the numerator. Step 2 says denominator times the denominator. Now step 3 says perform the calculation. So what is 2 times 4? That's 8. And what is 3 times 3? 9. So this is our final answer, because we cannot divide by any number that can go into both, because odd numbers can be divisible by 2, 4, 6, 8, and even numbers can be divisible by 2, 4, 6, 8, and odd numbers can be divisible by 1, 3, 5, 7 and 9. So as you can see above, on the numerator we got an even number, and in the denominator we got the odd number. Example 4 says 2 over 3 times 4. As we can see, the first fraction says 2 over 3, and the second one isn't a fraction, it's just a number on its own. So what do? In this case, we need to convert this whole number into fraction as well. So how do we do that? We write 2 over 3 times this 4 becomes the numerator, 4 over 1. So if there is a number standing on its own and is not a fraction, then that's your numerator. So you write it as a numerator over 1, because 4 over 1 is same as 4. Now you can perform all the steps as they are. So the first step, numerator times numerator, which is 2 times 4 all over 3 times 1, which is denominator times denominator, 3 times 1. So what is 2 times 4? 8. And what is 3 times 1? That's 3. Now, from the previous example, I have told you when we need to go to the simplest form and when we cannot. So by looking at 8 over 3, what do you think? Can we go to the furthest? Pause the video and think of an answer and the reason why not. Now that we have come back, the answer is no, because on top we got even number and in bottom we got odd number. So there is no common number that can divide both the numbers. Therefore, we cannot simplify further. There is no step 4, and this is your final answer. Let's move on to the next example. Example 5 says 5 times 3 over 2. Example 5 is similar to example 4. In example 5, we got 5 standing on its own times 3 over 2. So as we discussed before, if there is a number standing on its own, then it's your numerator. Then you write it numerator over 1. Therefore, first we need to convert this into a fraction. So therefore we write this as our numerator over 1 times 3 over 2. And from now on here, we just perform our normal steps. So the first step is numerator times numerator over denominator times denominator, which is 1 times 2. And step 3, perform your calculation. What is 5 times 3? 15. 1 times 2, 2. So your answer is 15 over 2. Again, can the step 4 apply here? The answer is no. Now that we have gone through all the multiplication, let's move on to division. But before we move on, there's something important for you to note. There are two ways they can ask you division. The most common way is using method A, which says 5 over 2 divide by, this is the division sign, 2 over 3. So 5 over 2 divide by 2 over 3. And now method B says 5 over 2 divide by 2 over 3. Can you see there's a fraction on top, 5 over 2, and then there's one more line that divides the numerator and the denominator. Then you got 2 over 3. If they ask you in this form, in most of the case they'll ask you in this form. But if they ask you in this form, you have to bring from this form to this form, which is not hard, right? So all you have to do to bring this from this to this is simply find your numerator. Which is your numerator? 5 over 2, right? So you write a numerator which is 5 over 2. And which one is your denominator? 2 over 3. And what does this line mean? It means divide. So divide by 2 over 3. Can you see now it's in this form? So once you have it in this form, then we have it as the same steps, right? After you have it in this form, then we can perform the same calculation. So let's go on. Now you know how to go on from here to here. Let's perform the calculation, right? So if you have 5 over 2 divided by 2 over 3, one thing to note is division of fraction and multiplication of fraction is very similar. There is only 1 or 2 steps different, then they both do the same calculations. So let's see how does it differ. So the first task for us is to change this division sign into multiplication sign. So once we have got this question, now let's change the division sign to multiplication sign. So we got 5 over 2 times. And once you change this division into multiplication, the next fraction after the division also changes. So its numerator becomes the denominator and the denominator becomes the numerator. So you write 3 over 2. So did you see? First step, change division to multiplication. If you're changing division from multiplication, it means the next fraction is going to change the numerator to denominator and the denominator to numerator. Therefore, this 2 over change, we swapped it around and it became 3 over 2. And as you can see now, this is just the multiplication of fractions. So what was step 1 of multiplication? Numerator times numerator, which is 5 times 3. And what is the next step? Step 2 says denominator times denominator, which is 2 times 2. And the next step is to perform calculation. So what is 5 times 3? 15. And what is 2 times 2? 4. Again, does step 4 apply here? The answer is no, because we got an odd number on top and even number in the denominator. So odd and even, it means we cannot simplify it further. Therefore, the answer is 15 over 4. So let's look into step and see how we go on with from division to multiplication to simplifying further. Okay, so let's distribute it into different steps. Now let's look at this example step by step. So what does step 1 says? Change the division sign to the multiplication sign. So we came from 5 over 2 divided by 2 over 3. We said 5 over 2 times. We changed the division sign to the multiplication sign. Now the steps 2. Swap the numerator and the denominator of the second fraction, or as we called it, the numerator becomes the denominator and the denominator becomes the numerator. So if you change the sign from division to multiplication, it means the next step is to swap this fraction. If we swap this fraction, we get 3 as our numerator and 2 as our denominator. Now from step 3 to step 6, these are all the steps we did for multiplication, because now the fraction is in the multiplication form. So once we have 5 over 2 times 3 over 2, it becomes the multiplication steps. So now we times numerator times numerator over denominator times denominator. So we got 5 times 3 over 2 times 2. And then perform the calculation, we got 15 over 4. Again, does step 6 apply here? We look at it and we said no, right? Because the reason we gave was we got the odd number on top and even number in the bottom. Therefore, we cannot. So this other step for division of fraction. Can you see how simple fraction division is? There is only 2 additional steps. The first step is changing the sign from division to multiplication, and the second step is swapping the fraction after the sign. And from after that, it's just the multiplication. So let's move on to the next example. Now, example 3 says 3 over 2 over 4. So let's write it in the form that we understand. So we say 3 over 2 divided by 4. Again, now we have 3 over 2 divided by 4. Here we got a fraction, but here we got a number standing on its own. As I said on the multiplication fraction side, that if you have a number standing on its own, that is your numerator, and then you change it to numerator over 1. We do the same thing here. So the next step is to change 3 over 2 divided by 4 over 1. So we converted this into a fraction. So we got a fraction on this side and a fraction on this side. Now we begin with our steps. So now the next step is to change the division sign to multiplication sign. So we go on to 3 over 2 times. Now if you change division to multiplication, it means you are going to swap the fraction. So it means 4 over 1 becomes 1 over 4. And from now on, this is your multiplication step. So let's go and perform those. So we say numerator times the numerator over denominator times the denominator. So what is 3 times 1? That's 3. And what is 2 times 4? That's 8. Now ask yourself, can you go furthest? Can you apply step 6? Pause the video and answer. So the answer is no. Please copy down the steps on a piece of paper and keep it as your notes so that you can refer back to it whenever you do your examples and the homework that I'll be giving you. These steps I provide to you are very helpful. If you are lost while you are working, you can refer back to steps and know where you have made your mistakes. These steps will help you to know what your next step is. They'll help you to get to your answer. Every video I upload, there will be different steps that I'll be showing you need to do in order to get to the right answer. So please make sure you copy down these steps and keep them safe, and always refer them back when I give you the homework or the example you are performing on your own. So in the next section, I'll be giving you the homework. So this is your homework on topic multiplication and division of fractions. Please make sure you do your homework, and in the next video we'll be walking through this. As I've been telling you in the previous video, please make sure you practice more and more. In order for you to master a maths topic, you need to practice more and more. That's why I work through the examples, I give you the steps, and then later on I provide you with homework. So after you do all this homework, after completing your notes, I can guarantee you will be on a good way to success. So please complete this homework and come back to the next video and watch how I do the solution. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you very much for watching the video. Subscribe to my channel, like and share with your friends. Until next time, stay safe and study.